Are you tired of all the voices who say, focus on the bottom line numbers?
Say whatever you have to, just close the sale.
Just get the credit card. It doesn't matter what you deliver.
You will never build a successful business until you grow a pair and stop caring so much.
Here, we respectfully disagree. We give you permission to embrace who you are, how much you care, and encourage you to design a business that works for you and your clients. Welcome to The Art of Giving a Damn, the podcast that proves with every single episode that you can create a profitable business doing what you're passionate about and making a positive difference in the world. Now here's your host, Michelle Schaefer.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Giving a Damn. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of a hot topic, I think, and I've got Dr. Corinne Weaver with me today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
So excited to be here, Michelle. Thank you so much.
You have an absolutely amazing story. You went through childhood injury, had severe health issues as a kid, asthma, allergies, things that most of us, when we hear that, we're like, oh yeah, that's a lifelong thing to deal with. And yet you have gone on a journey that, boy, I don't even know where to start to describe it. You figured out a way to heal yourself of these things and to do it without medication. And so that's what you share with people, is how to live a drug-free, healthy life. Talk to us first about your personal story and your journey.
Well, I was a healthy kid until 10 years old. And at 10 years old, I was riding a bike, and all of a sudden a horsefly landed on my shoulder. There's nasty bugs. And I went to slap it off the shoulder, and I went flying over the handlebars, landed on my front teeth. And from that day on, my health changed. I wasn't able to breathe, and I was depending on medication morning and night, living on breathing machines. My parents did the best that they knew, we were raised, if we had a problem, we look into the medicine cabinet, take the pills, and, we move on, right? So they took me to the best doctors. I was getting allergy shots, 2 or 3 times a week. I was living on, like I said, steroid medication. And then my uncle would come literally from the Amazon rainforest. You like this beautiful background I have here? Yeah, so got like a rainforest kind of behind us. And so he would come in and he would bring in these natural herbs. And even as a small kid, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And he would make me a tea and tincture, and I would breathe that in. And I was like, this is life-changing. And, he was the first one to introduce chiropractic to me, because he was into all kinds of natural healing.
Right.
And he's married to Olivia Newton-John, and he was actually leaving her house, and he got in a really bad car accident, and he fractured his spine. And I went to go visit him. It was like my favorite uncle, and I'm like laying herbs on his back, because he's like, he's like me. He's like, don't want to take any drugs. And so he was like, you have healing hands. You should look into chiropractic. And I was like, what is chiropractic? No one really knew what chiropractic was in my family. And so that changed everything for me. And that made sense to me that since that bike accident, my head and neck were not on straight. And so my body cannot heal. And so it was really nice to go on that journey of chiropractic and to be able to raise my children with no medication, and been in practice for 15 years helping others. So.
Wow. Well, that was going to be my next question, was how did you transition into chiropractic? But it sounds like it was just one of those things that was kind of a natural, this makes sense as my next step.
Yeah, my own medical doctor, my own pediatrician, they really didn't have any answers for me. And I think you've been there before. I remember you telling me about your son. And, we get frustrated because as parents, we want to take our kids and they, want to get them better. And you're explaining to these doctors to help my kid, and then they don't have solutions. And we know that, some meds can be helpful, but some meds could just cover up the side effects and not really getting down to the true cause of what's going on. So, to be able to figure that out and to bring healing to myself and thousands of others, it's just been it's been a gift. It's really my journey of sickness was a gift, actually, to find out what my gift was to help others. So I'm just so grateful.
I love that. That is an amazing thing when you can take what is the challenges and the frustrations that you've been through and the solutions you've found and really turn that into something that you can help so many others with. And yeah, you're right. My son, when he was 4, got really sick. And I took him into the ER. I think it was 4 times. We were to 2 different pediatricians, an internal medicine doctor. I lost count of how many different people we took him to who couldn't figure out what was wrong and why as he turned 5, he weighed 28 pounds. He had lost that much weight. He was sick every time he ate anything. We had taken out all of the things that we could think of, like all the typical allergens you know of. There was no milk, no eggs. We just went down through everything. And finally, I got desperate. I was like, okay, who else might be able to help me figure out what's wrong with him? Because they just kept telling me, he's fine, take him home, feed him something different. And I could tell he wasn't okay. And I took him to a chiropractor who did allergy testing and came up with, of course, he was reacting to just about everything at that point because he had so much inflammation in his body. But what it come down to at the core was he had celiac. He had a gluten allergy. And once we got
did you know what gluten was at that time?
I had never even heard of gluten. I was like, wheat. Okay, I understand wheat, but what is gluten? Like, I had never heard of any of that. This was 12, 13 years ago now. And gluten-free was not a fad diet back then. That's something Hollywood's come up with in the last few years. Right? I love California. It's easy to eat there. But I had never heard of it. And it was actually a chiropractor that was able to take the time, I think, and ask the right questions to figure out what was the root cause of it, and not just tell me, give him Pepto, give him Gas X, because all of the things we tried, it was just masking symptoms, and it didn't even do a good job. Like, it didn't even really relieve it for him.
Celiac, that's serious, the autoimmune condition. One of my worst asthma attacks was eating lasagna and ice cream. So now I know the correlation of gluten and dairy and how that can affect our health. And you being in California, I'm in North Carolina, so we're getting there. We're catching up, but you guys in California definitely know how to juice and, do your smoothies in the morning and, be more mindful of food and how it can affect your health. And North Carolina, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are so many things like that I think a lot of people just aren't aware, because it's what we were raised on the food pyramid. Bread is the foundation, bread and potatoes and carbs. Yes, that's what we're supposed to eat most of, and it's I think it's interesting because when we do get our eating habits to something more natural and healthy, it is easier to go drug-free because your body doesn't have some of the challenges. So actually, let's talk about that piece of it, of this idea of being able to achieve health without having to rely on drugs or surgery, because so many people do have chronic conditions that they're dealing with. So when you look at all of the different issues that especially women our age deal with, what are some practical steps people can take to start improving their health?
A lot of people do think about nutrition, and it is considered, I feel like, number one, but really is stress, and how you deal with stress is going to be really top, because, you're talking about me and your age and our age group. We deal with a lot of stress, especially as women. We put a lot on our plate, especially if you have your own business and you have your family and kids and friends and, all of that. And so we got to have to make time for ourselves to take care of other people. So the first book I wrote was called Learning How to Breathe. So learning to breathe through your nose and just taking deep.
I'm thinking that you're breathing properly. That seems like such a simple, shouldn't we automatically do that properly? But I'm thinking about it, and I don't breathe in through my nose as often as probably I should. So first of all, what is proper breathing?
Right.
I think I'm doing it wrong.
When you breathe through your nose, they say that it makes you smarter. You actually get more oxygen to your brain.
Okay.
So breathing through your nose and taking the time to, hold your breath. So it's 4, 7, 8. So you breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and then breathe out for 8. And the more that you breathe out actually stimulates a part of your nervous system to help you relax and rest and digest your food. So you can even do this with your
Ah.
kids, 'cause, kids are under a lot of stress. And so you can just, get them in a relaxful, environment before they sleep and share this with them. And when you do that, it actually tells your body that everything's going to be okay. And,
Ah.
living in this stressful world, we kind of forget to breathe. A lot of times people will say like, oh my gosh, I forgot to breathe, like what? So, anxiety kind of comes about, and, you're just constantly trying to breathe through your mouth. So taking the time to do that throughout the day can make a huge difference on your nervous system.
Yeah, I'm people who aren't watching on video, you're missing the I'm sure pretty interesting scene of me trying to count 4 in, hold 7, count 8, and breathe out. But that actually, it is interesting. I feel different just a couple of times taking a breath that way.
Yeah, it's amazing how it can literally just switch, and anybody can do it. You don't have to have a magical pill or, anything else to really, control your own breathing. I was able to have 3 kids natural at home, which is a big deal. So I had to learn how to have breathing episodes and all of that. So it's really, really big and important. And that's what got me through, was like learning how to relax your body in the most stressful, painful times. And that's a really, really big key.
Wow. Okay. So you wrote an entire book about how to breathe the right way. What else was in it? I'm really curious.
I do talk about nutrition, how it can affect your breathing, like with asthma. Dairy and gluten was a big one. I talk about essential oils. Are you into essential oils?
I have tested that out for migraines, actually. I found they actually work better sometimes than pills do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love peppermint. Peppermint was one of the first ones that I used, peppermint. And so peppermint and eucalyptus and lemon really helps the lymphatic system. And so using these on a daily basis, I was helping, rubbing these on. And back then, essential oils weren't really, big. And so I started it about 15 years ago. And when I would see patients, I'm like rubbing peppermint on them, and they're like, wow, that makes me feel better and maybe I'm more alert. And now we're doing research and we're like, wow, peppermint actually opens up it goes through your brain and can open up your cells to get more oxygen in. So no wonder they were feeling better, and maybe it can help you with your headaches. So, we use essential oils. And then we also talk about, certain herbs that my uncle used from the Amazon. Last night, I did a huge class about cannabis. And that's kind of really big right now. It's a big talk about CBD and how it can help our system. And so I was explaining the endocannabinoid system, which is really familiar with the nervous system and how it works on balancing the body. And so people that have high anxiety and, have trouble sleeping and panic attacks and chronic pain, like CBD is like a lifesaver for them.
Really?
So there's so many natural herbs that we can use to bring healing to our body. And so when I meet with a client, it's all finding out, what stress loads do they have and how are they living their lifestyle now? Because there's emotional, and I know in your podcast, sometimes you talk about emotional traumas. So just like my physical trauma, people come in with all this emotional baggage and trauma and how it really just turns on their health. And they don't even realize they're carrying all that weight. And I'm seeing them and I'm like massaging their shoulders and they're like, and I'm like, what are you carrying? What are you carrying on your shoulders? And so when we talk through that, and then they're just able to release it. So learning to really like let go and release that emotional trauma can be so healing as well.
It can, and that's one of those things that we're not taught. Like some of these like core essentials to life, I think nobody talks about when you're a kid and when you're starting to go through and form the patterns for how you cope with things. You don't really heal that unless you have somebody in your family like you did who's in that part of the world and is able to say, here's a different way to deal with this. I think a lot of times we're not even aware of our options. I mean, that's something that I grew up in a really rural area around some native culture, so I was exposed more to it, I think, as a kid, the alternative healing type stuff. And so it was kind of natural for me. I remember when I was a kid, my mom took us to a chiropractor. So it wasn't at all odd for me. And
You're so lucky.
I know. I'm frustrated it took me that long. But, there were other people involved in the equation who were like, chiropractors are quacks. We're not doing that with my son.
Right,
Like,
right.
At some point, I don't care. We're going to a chiropractor. And it was interesting because I think so many people have prejudgment and misconceptions about a lot of what's considered in the U.S. to be alternative, but elsewhere around the globe, it's not looked at as alternative medicine at all. It is medicine, right? And it's something I love that you brought up about peppermint oils, us finding the science that supports it, because so many things that I know have worked for me over the years or for people in my family, for friends, it's like, well, they're not quite sure why, they can't quite explain it, but later the science comes out and says, hey, this is actually what's going on, and you're able to validate it. That's a great feeling, actually, to be able to validate that and say, I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew it wasn't just me. Science proves it.
I know. I mean, these plants have been around for thousands of years, and it's amazing what they used to do back in the day, how they actually knew how to use the plants for certain reasons. Yeah. And that's what my uncle learned. I mean, when he was living in the Amazon, he was with the Indians there, and that's all they had was the plants. And that's where the treasure was. And so,
Absolutely.
Getting back to knowing how to work with the plants and the ecosystem and how it all works together as one, and working with the body and not stopping the body. So it's like when you go to when you're taking certain medications, it like wants to stop what your body's trying to do. And so the plants, you can actually work with the body, finding the root cause and allowing the body to do what it naturally needs to do. And, knowing with your son now, he's allergic to gluten. And gosh, what a life-changing thing for him forever, and how that's going to help him, But if he went years and years not knowing that, it had created more autoimmunity in his body. So it's good that you found out. You said age 5? He was age 5?
He was 5, and we figured that out. And then a few years later, I started having symptoms. I had eaten, and I remember this. It was a Pizza Hut thin crust pizza, which is my favorite pizza in the world, and I got so sick. The pain was worse than childbirth. And I don't know how else to describe it. I nearly went to the ER, but I recognized the symptoms. I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. And I know doctors can't really explain what triggers it to present at certain times, but I was like, okay, I don't need to have testing done. I recognize this symptom. I cut out gluten.
Right.
And I realized, okay, that's just what my system has decided. This is the diet it wants to be on. But it's interesting.
Right.
I remember when I was a kid hearing my dad say one time, and this was like one of those light bulb, like total perspective shift things for me, was he believed that every disease on earth there is a cure for somewhere in plants, somewhere in what we have on the planet. And that gave me a different perspective when we look at the way that we're tearing down rainforests and just moving into these areas. It's such a dangerous thing, because I really think there's a lot we don't know, a lot we haven't discovered in some of those areas that really are powerful cures to things that the body has, out of balance. It's really interesting.
But, things are changing, like what I noticed when I first started my practice, like people were like, yeah, I'm witchcraft and voodoo and all this other stuff. But, now things have come around and they've turned, and people are searching for answers, and it's refreshing, to be in this industry.
Yes.
And now I actually work with medical doctors, and I work with pediatricians, and they come together, for ultimately for the patient. Yeah. And so that is a huge shift that's happened.
I think it is. And that's one thing that's good to see, the fact that people are a little more open-minded now than they used to be and I think it's because there's been results. I think it's because we all know somebody who something previously considered a little tricky worked for them. And so it's like, okay, you can't argue with the result. You can't argue with proof of somebody who struggled with asthma for years and now doesn't have an issue with it. Or somebody who had something that doctors said at one point in the past was incurable, or was there going to be a medication forever. Now they're not. Clearly something worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just so nice like most of my patients are referral based because they get better and they have to tell other people.
Yeah.
But like the research you said, it's starting to come out, and just seeing the shift and working with people and working with other doctors is just, it's so awesome. It's just so good, because really it's ultimate for the patient, Right. I had a kid that came in last week, and he was having like 7 or 8 ear infections. And finally, the doctor was like, let's try chiropractic. You know,
Wow.
after all the infections, after all the antibiotics, after getting the tubes, now let's try chiropractic. I mean, I wish it was the first go around, but
Yeah.
it took, going through that to know, hey, this is not working. And
Right.
so, yeah, we were able to do a simple adjustment and the kid's better, and it's just so much power in that,
Yeah.
it's very awesome.
There really is. And I think some of that comes down to patients educating themselves and being able to look at the alternatives and ask their doctors or look around and just find those people who can support them in getting healthy. Because it really is. It's one of those things that I know they use the phrase everybody's practicing medicine. Well, yeah, because everybody's different. And if you're going to figure out what works for you, stand up for yourself, be an advocate, do the research and try things and just see. I think that's one of the keys. I mean, like you did, you went, okay, I don't want to be on drugs for the rest of my life. So let's see what works for me. I love that.
Right. And yeah, and you have to have some faith, I guess, in that. But yeah, working with people and hanging out with people that are more like-minded, it's just easier. So I went to chiropractic school and everybody was like, yeah, I've never been vaccinated. No, I've never had a drug. And I'm like, who are these people? And it's just really neat to be supported with people. It's to be supported with people that are like-minded and are really fighting for it. And so last night when I was talking to the group of people talking about CBD, and finally we can sell it. We can sell CBD and get it. And, this, like I said, this plant's been around for thousands of years. And I'm like, it's really because of you guys. I'm speaking for a big group. I'm like, because you guys are standing up and wanting change, and you're seeing the results within yourself. And so it's fighting the norm that's been brainwashed for all these years.
Yeah, you know what? I would actually love to do another episode if you're up for it and talk about that, because I know that's a hot topic, and so is anxiety and stress for entrepreneurs. I know so many, especially women who suffer from panic attacks and have high levels of stress. So I would love to actually have a conversation about that piece of things if you're up for it sometime.
Oh yeah, I would love that. For sure. Yeah, we can definitely have another meeting and talk about anxiety. Anxiety is really big, and so, people don't know how to deal with it. It's like I think it's the second prescribed drug is anti-anxiety.
I would absolutely believe that. Yeah. Well, speaking of prescriptions and all of these pieces, I want to let people know where they can go to get a copy of your best-selling book, No More Meds.
So they can go to nomoremedsmovement.com and get a free copy.
nomoremedsmovement.com. All right. We will make sure that link is somewhere near where you are watching or listening to this podcast today. And if you're interested in an episode on anxiety, stress, and possibly CBD and what that may be able to do to help you, let us know and we'll set that up. Dr. Weaver, thank you so much for your time, for the conversation, for the practical tips that people can look at, from breathing to eating to all of those pieces, and how they can live a healthier life.
Thank you.
All right. For those of you listening, be sure to grab a copy of the book, nomoremedsmovement.com. You will find it there totally free. And take a look at that. It might be something that will really help you get a different perspective on what you can do health-wise to support yourself, your family, give you some ideas. And be sure to rate, review, subscribe to the show wherever you are listening or watching. And we will catch you back again soon for another episode.